Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I am Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the family. Alright, so you already saw the title and the thumbnail, but just to give you a little bit of background, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that this past weekend, my fiance actually graduated with his master's. So very proud of him. And that is honestly what inspired this video, because last weekend it was 97 degrees and his graduation was outside. When I tell you I was cooking, I was cooking. I have already completed my summer tan because it was so hot, and as I sat in that hot sun baking like a whole potato, I started thinking about the foundation I was wearing and what it means to have matte foundations. So I know it's probably technically not summer yet, but as we're getting into summer, if this is any indication of what the temperature will be, I thought it made sense to come on here and talk about my favorite matte foundations for the summertime. So just a little bit of background before we dive into the 5 foundations that I have to show you guys. My skin type is oily and acne prone. That's how I like to describe my skin type, because for the most part I do tend to get really oily, especially in my T-zone, and I have struggles with acne. Over the past, I want to say like 5 or 6 years, I have seen a dermatologist, so I do have prescription acne products, because I don't get those like regular acne marks where it's like the ones that have the white bumps on it. I get cystic acne that tends to really concentrate around my jawline, and that's like the one that hurts a ton and you can't really pop it. So I do have prescription products that I use that tend to dry out my face a little bit, so I will oftentimes end up with dry patches. So even though my skin overall is quite oily in a lot of the, you know, typical places, I do have like dry patches from the acne products that I use. That being said, when it comes to the winter time, I try to stick with more hydrating products because my skin gets dried out from, you know, the dry air from the heaters and whatnot. But now that we're going into summer, my skin will really lean into that oiliness, so I tend to switch my foundations to really focus on ones that are more mattifying and can control shine. So I have 5 foundations to share with you guys, and let's just dive right in, because I don't want this video to be super long. I just want to tell you all what it is you should have in your collection. So let's start with my number 1 foundation pick. I figured why not start with a bang, and I'm going to share the foundation that is my number 1, and that is the Urban Decay Stay Naked foundation. This baby and this was actually the foundation that I wore to my fiance's graduation because I knew that this would hold up. This is a foundation that I travel with when I go to the Caribbean, because if you know one thing, the Caribbean will give you some good hot sun, and this is, in my opinion, the best mattifying foundation that I have ever used so far. So I wear the shade 70WY, it's a 70 warm yellow. I will admit this is a little bit orange on me, so the shades, I don't know, I feel like maybe I should try to find another one that has a little bit more of a neutral undertone, because this one is a little orange. I mean, once you add concealer and bronzer and all the other products, it can't, you know, it matches perfectly, so I don't really worry about it too much, but it is a hint too orange for my liking. So like I said, I actually wore this foundation to my fiance's graduation. What I will say about this foundation is that it is extremely mattifying, so I really don't like to use this in the winter time, and I really only use it when it's the summertime or when I'm traveling to like the Caribbean, like I said. Overall, I think that this has a medium finish that could be built up to full, but I wouldn't say that it is a heavy foundation. Even though this is medium that can be built to full coverage, it does still feel quite light on the face, and it blends into the face really nicely. It will give you a very matte look though. So if you are someone that leans a little bit more dry, or even if you do have an oily skin type, I do recommend that you moisturize and do your skin prep really well before you go in with this foundation, and it will last all day. When I tell you I was sweating in that hot sun on Saturday, I was sweating, and at the end of it, while I was, you know, glowy from all of the sweat, the foundation held up really well. Like, the sweat didn't disturb any of the foundation or anything, so I was really impressed with how this held up this weekend. So this is my number 1 pick. I think I will forever continue to buy this just because it works so good. It works so good when you need to stay matte. Alright, The second foundation that I want to talk about is one that is a little bit more full coverage and one that I've actually been wearing kind of non-stop lately because it looks really good on camera. And that is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation. I have this in the shade 12.5 Neutral, and I really love how this one matches me. Now, like I said, this one is definitely more full coverage. I try to go in with literally only like one pump of this because anything more than that, and I do end up with a very full coverage look. If you've watched my channel before, you know that I am a medium to light medium coverage kind of girl. So this is not one that I like to wear all the time because after a while it does feel heavy. So if I'm doing something that's a little bit shorter in terms of like I'll be wearing it for a couple of hours, I will likely reach for this because I can wear this for a couple of hours and feel comfortable. But anything longer than that, it really does start to feel a little heavy on the face, and I don't love that, so I wouldn't wear it for like a full day. So like the name says, this does give really flawless coverage. I do find that this tends to like smooth out my skin, remove all of the imperfections. I like to film with this because it gives me a very sort of clear, flat base to work from, and it just gives like a very airbrush flawless look. So this I definitely think of as a pretty matte foundation, but it does wear throughout the day, so I do tend to see my oils peeking through, but nothing bad, to be honest. So like I said, this would be one of my, like, I have it on for 4, maybe 5 hours, but not a full day because it does tend to feel a little heavy. But this, flawless. And Charlotte actually does have a pretty good foundation range in terms of the amount of shades that are available. So I definitely recommend that you try this out, especially if you are someone that prefers a more full coverage foundation. So next is a new one to my collection, and you guys have heard me talk about this. I have a full review on my channel of this one, and that is the Givenchy Matte Foundation. It's the Prisme Libre Self Something Matte Foundation. So I picked this up during the Sephora VIB sale because I wanted to try a new matte foundation for the summer. As summertime was coming up, once the spring sale came around, I decided I wanted to try a new foundation that was a little bit more mattifying, and this is the one that I went with. Now this one is probably the weakest matte foundation that I'm talking about out of all of the ones here. So, and by that I mean this one has the least longevity than the others, and this one is very much dependent on what products you use with this. So I have worn this several times at this point, so I have a really good feel for the product, and what I've come to realize is that depending on how you prime your face and how you do your skin prep before, that determines how long this foundation lasts. Now I have used this with mattifying primers with the Danessa Myricks balm powder thing. What is it? Yummy balm? Yummy, I think it's Yummy Balm, whatever it's called. Y'all know what I'm talking about, the little powder thing. So I have tried it with that Yummy Balm thing as well as another mattifying primer, and I found that when I use those, it lasts very well. Like I can wear it for like a full work day, and while I still will get some shine, it lasts pretty well. But if I go in with a hydrating primer or anything that's just a little bit more glowy under the skin, you wouldn't think that this was a matte foundation. So if you are someone that is really oily, I don't know if you would necessarily love this one because it is so dependent on how you prep your skin, and it doesn't last that long throughout the day. To be quite honest, I would give you really only get a couple of hours and then it starts to break down, and by breakdown I mean your oils start to peek through. So if you need it to last for several hours, that I think is something to keep in mind. What I do like about this foundation though is that it is medium coverage and this is extremely lightweight. Like it looks so natural on the skin, and it's that light to light medium coverage. Like, no, a solid. I would give it a solid medium coverage, not light. So it's a solid medium coverage. So if you want something that's a little bit lighter, you don't really feel it on the skin, I think that this is a good one. Like I said, it's just the longevity and the fact that this isn't that matte. So if you are in the oily combination range and you don't need something that's too mattifying, or if you lean drier than, you know, really oily, this might actually be a good one for you. 2 foundations left. So next I want to talk about the Too Faced Born This Way matte foundation. Now there is an OG version of this that is a little bit more hydrating, a little bit more glowy, and I've used that one. And it's a nice foundation, but I will admit it's definitely not mattifying. So when they came out with the matte version, I always wanted to try it. And then there was finally a sale, I think at Ulta, for like 40% off, so I decided to pick this up. This is in the shade Chestnut. This is definitely not the right shade for me, and it's definitely a little bit orange. which I find happens a lot. You know, so a lot of times these warm foundations tend to be quite orange, and this one is definitely a little too deep and a little too orange for me. However, summertime is coming, which means I will deepen up a little bit, so it might work a little bit better then. But, you know, with concealer and bronzer and everything, I can make it work now. This is a really nice matte foundation. However, it is a little bit heavy on the skin. It reminds me a little bit of the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless in that it's definitely more medium to full coverage, and you can feel it on the skin. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like full coverage foundations, is because you can feel it on the skin. And if it's one thing I don't like, is to feel like I'm wearing makeup. Like, that just irritates me. So the fact that this is a little bit thicker than I want it to be isn't necessarily my favorite. However, this does wear really, really nicely throughout the day. In terms of longevity, I think it kind of falls in the middle of the pack for all of the ones that I showed here, but it does wear really well. I feel like I don't notice a ton of shine in my T-zone. It doesn't oxidize. I don't have any real issues with this. So if you want to try, or if you like the original Too Faced foundation and you want to try something that's a little bit more mattifying, I would definitely recommend giving this one a try. I do know that this is available at the cosmetics company store. Mine doesn't have a ton of shades available, but if you have one near you, I would definitely call to check it out, because you can get it for 40 to 50% off at the CCO. So if you wanted to try it, I would definitely say check there first, because you can get it at a pretty good discount. And finally, talking about foundations that you can get at a discount, one that you definitely want to get at a discount, and I think is my favorite foundation of all time that I've tried so far, is gonna be the La Mer foundation. This is the Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation, broad spectrum, the Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation, and it has SPF 20 in it. Now, when it comes to foundations having sunscreen in it, I don't care. If I'm being honest, I truly don't care, because to be quite frank, the sunscreen that exists in foundation alone is definitely not enough protection. So you should be going in with the sunscreen on your skin before you go in with foundation anyway. So if a foundation has it or doesn't have it, it doesn't really matter to me, because I am definitely going in with an actual sunscreen before I go with the foundation. That being said, this foundation is perfection. The biggest issue that I have with this foundation is the price. I think this retails for $125. Like, it's asinine how expensive this foundation is. However, like the Too Faced foundation, it is available at the cosmetics company store, and you can get this for, I believe, 50% off. So I was able to get this around $60-something, which is the price of a Pat McGrath foundation. So not too bad. I mean, it's still pretty expensive for a foundation, but considering the original price, I am willing to pay the $60-something. Now, what I love about this foundation is that this works in every single season. I don't know how, I don't know why, I swear it's some kind of magic, but I have worn this in the winter time and loved it, because it doesn't cling to my dry patches when my skin gets really dry in the winter, and it doesn't look like it gets oily throughout the day. None of that. It just looks flawless. And I've worn this in the summertime and really loved it as well. I don't know how it like adapts to my skin needs, and that's what I feel about this foundation. What I really love about this foundation is that I wouldn't describe it as matte in this true sense of being matte. For example, when I use the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless, or even the Urban Decay Stay Naked, like, you can tell that my face is matte because it almost looks a little dry. With the La Mer foundation, my face looks matte, but it doesn't look dry. It doesn't look crusty. It's like a very natural, and I mean like the most natural matte I have ever seen. And I'm obsessed with the way in which this kind of like sinks into my skin and just kind of like becomes my skin. What I hate about foundation sometimes is that it can very clearly sit on top of your skin, and it's almost like the second layer that's just sitting there. I feel like this one really seeps into the skin, not in a way that clogs pores, but just seeps into the skin and creates this really flawless base, but not so flawless that it looks artificial. Like I said with the Charlotte Tilbury, flawless base that it like, you kind of look a little bit like an egg in terms of like there are no imperfections. This just kind of like sinks into the skin without hiding the imperfections, but without emphasizing it as well, and just creating this very sort of natural, like effortless base. And it really does feel like magic sometimes when I wear this. This is the foundation that I wear whenever I have a special occasion coming up. To be quite honest, I was actually going to wear this to my fiance's graduation, and then I was like, I love this foundation. I don't know how it's going to hold up in 97-degree heat. So let me go ahead with my trusty old Stay Naked, because I know how this holds up in like extreme heat. And I mean like extreme heat. So I decided to go ahead with the Stay Naked. But I have used the La Mer foundation in like pretty hot situations as well. So I know that this performs well. I just haven't used it in like 97-degree weather. But like I said, this is my special occasion foundation. Anything that is like a big occasion, Christmas, all this other stuff, this is the foundation that I go to. I am so glad that I can find this at the cosmetics company store at a discount, because it would be really sad if I had to pay full price for this. And I might, and this is a hard might be willing to pay full price for this because of how much I love this foundation. Like I said, favorite foundation of all time as of right now. There could be something better out there, so I would be happy to find it. Okay, and that's it. Those are the top 5 foundations that I have to recommend for you guys for summer. As you can see, some of them are pretty sort of high-end, mid-tier, and some of them are ridiculously, well, only one of them is really ridiculously expensive, and that's the La Mer. So I hope that this was really helpful as we are going into summer and things are getting hotter, and you're thinking about how to shake up your makeup routine or how to adjust your makeup routine for the weather changes. I hope that this was helpful. I am always on the hunt for a really, really good mattifying foundation. So if you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments below, because I am still looking for that good matte foundation. I actually just purchased the Lancome Teint Idole foundation to give it a try, and I think it's okay. I think I need a new shade though. But it's not as matte as I thought it was going to be. So I'm still on the hunt for a really good new matte foundation to add to my collection. So if you have any recommendations, leave it down in the comments below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe and join the family if you like the content and if you want to see more from me. And that's it from me, guys. As always, I love you so very much. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!